on the New Thought Media Network in July. Mitch's calling is to help others live a more authentic, healthy, and spiritually aligned life. Yeah, welcome Mitch. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Turn to somebody and say, glad you're here. Turn to somebody, let's look at each other. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Look at me, new. I just come into your house and boss you around. Who is this guy? I'm so grateful and honored to be here today. You know, this is your home. And you don't invite just anybody into your home. Right? And especially to bring the message this morning. And so I'm so grateful to Reverend Suzanne for inviting me. I am grateful to Reverend Maggie, who has kept the light on here for so many years. And I don't know if you know much about ministry, but the average life of a minister is 5 years. And Maggie was here much, much longer. And so I just have deep gratitude for the work and the foundation she built here in this beautiful spiritual community. And I'm so honored and blessed to be with you this morning. And so you know what? Today is the best day ever. Did you know that? It's the best day ever. Yeah. You know, I am a TikTok addict. My name is Mitch. And I need a TikTok recovery group. I saw this great video. This guy said, you know, most people would want $1 million, right? Who wouldn't want $1 million? He said, you know, some people would be like, what if I gave you $10 million? So cool, right? You'd be super excited. Yes, 10 million? But what if there was one stipulation? And here it is. You couldn't wake up tomorrow. But how many of us wake up each morning like we got $10 million? Something better than $10 million. That's why I say today is the best day ever. There's so many places we could be that aren't as great as this place. Yes? Yes. Blessed be. Blessed be. So the genesis of the talk that I'm going to give today occurred about 10 years ago. I took a class called Metaphysical Bible. Now, I took this class because I didn't have a good relationship with the Bible. I was part of the LGBTQ plus community, and, you know, we got beat up with that book a lot. And so I didn't want anything to do with it. But I kept hearing about all the metaphysical food and principles and teachings that were in there. And I thought, you know what, maybe I need to look again. Maybe I need to be open to something new about this book that I don't know about. And when I took the class, I learned about these things called parables. And I thought they were amazing because once I understood them, they were teaching spiritual laws, spiritual principles, using allegory and symbolism and what things meant. I just came alive. And I learned this one parable 10 years ago before I was speaking in centers, and I said, someday, I'm going to do a talk on this one because it's so good. And today's the day you're going to get to hear it. So there's a lot going on in the world the last several years. Yes, it's kind of crazy. It feels like the world just lost its mind. People marching, things in the shadows now coming to the light. Things that we thought wouldn't ever change, like Roe versus Wade getting overturned. It's like the whole world has flipped upside down. Does anyone feel like that? Yeah. I mean, there's so much change. Who's got change exhaustion? I know I do. And who wants some relief from that? Who wants some heaven on earth? Anybody? You got to name it to claim it, yes? Yes. Good, because the title of today's talk is Get Out of the Way. Heaven is here, right now. And it's just a thought away. But sometimes we get pulled out of our heaven, right? Anybody ever get caught in CNN? Constantly negative news ticker running through your mind? Yes. It's so easy to get called out of our heaven. sometimes. Because here's the truth. Heaven is here right now. When we get rid of the anxiety, what's left? Peace. When we transcend past the fear, what's left? Love. When we move past lack, thinking, and mentality, what do we see? All the abundance and goodness that is given freely to us. We don't have to earn this breath, it's just given. So much abundance. But here's the deal. Our mind blocks it, right? It starts to attach to things. I always like to compare the mind to an untrained puppy. Just go all over the place. And that's our work here. We talk a lot about it. Just anything can pull you out of your heaven. You get on the freeway, you're feeling good, you're going in somewhere, and somebody cuts you off, gives you half a peace sign, takes it right out of your head. For me, it's grocery store lines. I'm counting your items because you're in the 15 item line and you have 17, and I know I counted them, but I'm not thinking about it. I remember the first time I went to give this talk. I used to do my talks on poster board, and I'd set them up on a chair, and that's how I gave my talks. And I was on a Sunday morning running late, and I went to the dollar store, and I give the lady my poster board, and she takes it very slowly and slowly scans it, not scanning. And then it scans, but it's the wrong price, and she's like, I'm losing my mind. I'm like, really, lady? And then I thought, oh, there I am, losing my peace in line over poster board. And I kind of laughed because here I am giving a talk on Heaven is Here right now. I thought, well, I get to practice this before I give the talk, so. And of course, I arrive in time, on time, all the time. So there are three things we're going to focus on as we move through the talk today. Three takeaways that you can use to experience the heaven that's here right now. The first one is to follow your guidance. Anyone ever get that small, still voice, that guidance, right? It drops in and you don't listen to it and it was right. I remember one day I was walking out the door and I heard, bring your checkbook. I never bring my checkbook to work, never. So I knew enough to know this popped in for a reason, so I popped it in my pocket. That day, at work, they were selling crab feed tickets, and they were only taking checks. And they sold out that day. And I'd wanted those tickets for like 2 months. See, Spirit hears everything, even the small meditations of our heart. The second concept we're going to talk about today is how worthy we are. We've got to embrace our worthiness for our good. We have a ceiling for how much good. Did you know that? That our life is like a thermometer. We'll only take so much bad, and we'll only take so much good. It's called the upper limit. Right? And the reason we only take so much good is because we don't think we're worthy of the stuff above it. Right? But we can shift that. And we can look for it. We can say, yes, I am worthy. I am worthy of all the kingdom and all the good that Spirit has for me. And then the last thing is to remain receptive. I'm going to talk about the mind as if it were a cup, right? Our mind cup. And we have in that cup real estate, right? And what are we going to fill our mind with? And that's determined about what we focus on. And what we put in there. Because we can put in there things that make us feel good, that make us feel empowered, that make us feel hopeful, or we can put in things in there that make us feel shameful, that make us feel fearful, that make us feel like not enough, or that make us feel like somebody out there is the one. And it obscures the good that's here right now. So you want to know what that parable was 10 years ago? The prodigal son parable. Who loves the prodigal son story? Yeah? Great story. It's been called the crowning jewel of the Bible. Ernest Holmes called it the greatest story ever told. And with your permission, or without, I'm going to tell it Mitch style. A little bit fun, a little bit lively, and to bring some relevance to it. And here's the thing. I know many of you have heard the story before. I'm going to invite you to hear it again with a beginner's mind. Because the truth is, you're different than the last time you heard this story, right? We're all like a stream, an ever-changing stream of life. And you can't step into the same stream twice. So I invite you to approach this parable with a beginner's mind, and it might have some new food, some new spiritual nourishment for you. And then if you were like me years ago, and you kind of have an aversion to the Bible, and you've been beat up with it, I'm just going to invite you to just have just a little bit of opening in your consciousness that there's a metaphysical principle here for you. Beyond all that judginess and the bad ways these stories and this, what I call metaphysical handbook now, the Bible, has been used. And at the end there's a twist, and I'd like to know if you've ever heard this twist on the interpretation of the parable. So here's the thing about parables. They're teaching stories. We live in stories, we think in stories, we move in stories. See, Jesus could have just set the principle. You're already forgiven. God's already got you. You're good. Carry forth. But he didn't do that. Because he knows that the story is going to get past your critical mind. That it's going to engage you in a deeper way and get deeper into your psyche and consciousness. He also told this story when the Pharisees had cornered him. And they said, hey, why are you hanging out with those sinners? And why are you eating with them? And Jesus could have just responded, but he didn't. Because everybody was listening. And so he told this story, the story of the prodigal son. So here's the deal about parables and these stories. We're every character in the story. And there are three main characters. There's the forgiving father, right? Sometimes we're the bigger person. Sometimes we just let it go, right? And metaphysically speaking, the father represents spirit, the divine, God, by whatever word that you use. The other character in the story that we know very well is the prodigal son, right? The prodigal son with all of his big ideas and that he knows better than the good advice. Anybody ever know better than the good advice? Any rule breakers in the room, right? That's the prodigal son. He represents the idealistic mind. And then there's the good son, the rule follower, does everything right, earns his good. Got rule followers? Raise your hand. Ah, see, I know, see, if I say raise your hand, you have to do it, right? Rule follower. So this represents metaphysically the pragmatic mind. It's very grounded and very practical. Now there is a pig, a goat, and a cow. You don't have to be any of those. That's the good news. So let's get into the story. There was a man who had two sons. And his youngest son comes to him one day and says, look, Dad, I don't want to wait for you to die to get my inheritance. Can I have it now? I got plans. I got ideas. I want to go out there and make my way. And the father says, okay, here you go. Now, any of you parents in the room? Yeah, you would have been like, what are you doing with this? I don't know. Are you going to invest it? Notice that the father didn't say that. Spirit doesn't say that to us. Doesn't judge our requests. Spirit just says, yes, here you go, my beloved. And so the prodigal son, youngest son, gets 1/3, because the youngest son at that time always got 1/3 of the father's inheritance. And he leaves the father's house. Now the father's house represents father's spirit, and house represents consciousness. So he leaves the high consciousness of spirit to go to a distant land where the rules are different, the customs are different, the belief systems are different, and we'll call that distant land the thinking of the world. I am what I have, I am what I do, I am what others think of me, I've got to earn and work hard for my good. All right, he goes off to that land. And he's young, got a pocket full of cash, goes out to the club, and starts partying, spends it on wine, women, and song, and then he's broke. And not only is he broke, there's a famine in the country. There's no soup kitchens, there's no handouts. And the only job he can find, remember he's a Jew is feeding pigs. That's like the lowliest job for a Jew. And he's handing out these hard carrot seeds, and he's thinking, I'm so hungry, I'd even eat that. Imagine pouring out your dog food or your cat food. I'd even eat that. And then he starts throwing a pity party. Anybody ever do that? I blew it. I lost the sonship. What was I thinking? And just starts beating himself up. But then the Bible says something very important. It says he comes back to himself. Back to himself. Back to this higher part of his spirit, of his consciousness, and he has a thought. He has a thought from where? The Bible doesn't say this, but I'll put it in there. Out of the blue. Ever wonder where the blue is? And he thinks, lost the sonship. There's no way I'm getting the sonship back. But then he goes to the next good thing he can think of, and he thinks, well, maybe I could be a servant in my father's house. I mean, servants, they eat good. They got bread, they got wine. Maybe I could be a servant. And then he starts rehearsing a script to tell his father. You ever do that? Rehearse a script before you have to have a hard conversation. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to tell him I don't deserve it. I'm so sorry. And if I could just be a servant. And then he does the most powerful thing in the story. We would not have this story. It would not be the crowning jewel of the Bible. It would not be the greatest story ever told if he doesn't do this one thing. He takes the journey back to his father's house. And that's hard to do after you fail, yes? It's hard to make the apology or the amends or admit that we were wrong or admit that we missed the mark on something and go to fix it. Right? Maybe we left a job that we knew we shouldn't have left, and now we want to go back to it. Maybe we ended a relationship too soon, and now we know just how good we had it, and we want to go back. Right? So he's on this walk back, distant country, long walk. I'm sure you wanted to turn around. You ever start and say, I'm going to go do that, and then you talk yourself out of it? Who am I? It's going to say no. I'm going to fail. I failed before. I don't deserve it. But he kept walking, and here's what happened. Spirit, God, the Father, saw him out on the road and ran out to meet him. Not even home yet. Father throws his arms around him, kisses him. My son, you have returned. See, that's what Spirit does. We just begin the journey. And Spirit meets us out on the road. We take one step, and God takes two. Called the spiritual cha-cha. When we activate our consciousness in that way, even towards one small good, it gets amplified by Spirit. And the Father's hugging him and kissing him. And he says, get the robe, get the sandals. My son has returned. And the son's like, Father, I'm so sorry. And then the Father's like, get the ring, put it on his hand. If I could just be a servant in your Father's house. See, the Father's not hearing him. Spirit doesn't hear all these apologies, all of this shaming and beating up of yourself. It's not relevant. Spirit only sees us as the perfection, as the beautiful, whole essence we are and has always been. No matter what we've ever done, no matter how far we've ever fallen. Still whole, still worthy. You know what the ring represented back then? Anybody? It carried the insignia of the family. And you go in the marketplace and you press it and wax it. You buy a coat. It was the unlimited credit card. And he just squandered 1/3 of the inheritance. Still worthy of all the good that Spirit can show. And the Father says, kill a fat calf, we're going to have a party. And they go off. And they start the party. And out in the field, it's the good son, the rule follower, the oldest, toiling away, sweating, probably collecting all the wheat. He hears this commotion. He goes, I wonder what's going on. So he goes up to the house. He asks the servant, what's going on? The servant says, oh, it is a glorious day. Your brother has returned. He was lost and now he's found. Celebrate with us. He goes, I'm not celebrating with you. And then the father comes out and goes, son, 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 this is a glorious day. Your brother has returned. He was dead and now he's alive. Celebrate with us. And the good son says, really? Really? You throw a party for him? He squanders 1/3 of your inheritance on booze and prostitutes. I get up early every day. I do everything you say. This place would fall apart without me. You don't even give me as much as a small goat for me and my friends to enjoy. You're going to kill a fat calf for him? I'm not going to join you. And then the father says, son, I am always with you, and all that I have, remember, 2/3, all that I have is yours. I want to ask you a question. The prodigal goes out, squanders 1/3, comes back, open, humble, receptive to any good. But the good son has got 2/3, got everything else, but he can't let it drop in. Who squandered more? See, we think this story is about the prodigal, and it is. It is about falling down and being forgiven and coming back to the kingdom. But if we have our cup filled with judgment and righteousness, we can't let the good that's in right here, right now. You ever met somebody, you look at them, you think they have it all, and they just complain? Anybody ever meet that person? Yes. What's going on? They're not clearing their cup. They're not keeping it open and receptive. So the first takeaway of this story is to trust your guidance. What if the prodigal hadn't followed his guidance? He'd still be feeding pigs, and we wouldn't be telling the story, right? We got to follow our guidance. We got to trust it. And here's the thing: when you trust it, when you follow it, your faith in it grows. And your ability to use that guidance, that direction from out of the blue, and apply it to your life. I remember once I had this experience when I was running this community center, and I had this great little office, the peace pole, the koi pond. It was beautiful. I loved it. And I was sitting there one day. It was really quiet, and I assure you, I'm mentally well. I heard, quit your job. And I went, what? I can't do that. So I ignored it. 2 weeks later, I heard the same thing. Quit your job. Now, I was spiritually awake enough to know, as Oprah says, Spirit will throw pebbles at the window to get your attention until a brick comes. Anybody ever get the brick? Yeah, I didn't want the brick. So I went to my partner and said, we remember what our source is, right? I need to leave my job. And I did. I thought it'd be no problem. I have a really great resume. I put it out there. I wasn't getting any interviews. Not one. That was weird. And then my friend comes to me right to my doorstep, literally, with a job application. She says, I work at this group Home with Boys, and I think you'd be really great working with the youth. You should apply. Here's the application. And of course, my pragmatic mind went, well, this isn't going to pay the bills. But I knew it showed up for a reason. So I trusted that. And so I got the job, and there I am, first day, back of the van, in the corner, listening to rap music, thinking, God, please tell me it doesn't end here. Little did I know this little nonprofit that was changing lives for so many youth was having to go through a big change, a recertification, new licensing requirements, and they were just a mom and pop shop. They didn't know everything I knew. They didn't know about best practices and strategic planning and policies and procedures, all foreign to them. So they looked at my resume, and 3 months later, they made me their first ever HR director and corporate compliance director. And I stayed there and I helped save this little agency. See, my divine direction, which I left now in May to start my own company, and the funds that I got there have helped me move towards ministerial, finish my ministerial, and to start this business. All on the right path. Didn't look like it at the time, right? But we need to trust our guidance. Yes?
Yes.
We need to remember just how worthy we are. You know, we know in this teaching everything is a thought before it's a thing, yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Who thought of you? Who thought of you? Right. God don't make no junk. And that giving, loving spirit of the divine wants to give you everything, the whole kingdom. All that God has is yours. You're worthy of that. No matter how many times you got divorced, no matter how many businesses failed, right? No matter how many promises you weren't able to keep, no matter what addictive road some of us have been down, still worthy. Let's do a test. Worthiness test right now. Everyone take a deep breath. Let it out. Good, you all passed. Breathing worthy. There you go. See? It can be that easy. And last and most importantly, we need to stand guard at the doorway of our mind, this cup of our mind, to see what's going in there, what's slipping in there, what's getting triggered. Right? So that we can stay humble and open and not into that place of self-judgment, you know, that inner critic. Because the minute you go for your good, that internal voice is going to tell you how you're not worthy. Who are you? You're going to screw it up. You shouldn't even try. See, that voice will stop you at the door of heaven and say, you cannot enter. And that voice is not a power. And that voice is not telling you the truth. There is a higher truth. And that's when you go to the Father's house. That's when you go to the mind of the divine in your consciousness to remember a higher truth than your mind is going to tell you. So let's do a little cup test and see what's in there. See if we got any good sun stuff going on. You ready? All right. So let's just go within. I want you to activate your observer self, feel into your body, and I'm going to make some statements. And I want you to pay attention to what happens in your mind and body when I say this. How do you feel about unvaccinated people? A little judgy? A little something? Maybe, maybe not. Let's say you're walking down the street and someone with a MAGA hat walks by. Little something. Or maybe a Biden hat. Maybe a little something. Let's say you meet your child's partner and they announce to you their pronouns are they and them. A little confusion, a little what? Who is this person? They're weird. Or maybe you go to a festival and you see two men holding hands and kissing each other on the cheek. A little something, maybe, maybe not. And if anything here pulled at you, any of those statements, that's where our work is. To get to the oneness, to get back to the divine consciousness, and to know the truth beyond it. And you can open your eyes now. So I want to invite everyone to remember, follow your guidance. For the little things and the tall things, Spirit is always speaking to us because it's wanting to give us everything, even crappy tickets. Nothing too small or too tall. And remember your worthiness. When that voice comes in and tries to talk you out of your walk towards your good, right? Breathing worthy. That's it. Don't make it any more complicated than that. You were a good idea in the mind of God. And lastly, stay receptive. Stay receptive to your good. Don't let anything that's going on in the distant country rob you of your state of heaven that is here right now. No diagnosis. No numbers in a bank account. No neighbor mowing the lawn at 6 a.m. Don't let anything take you out of your heaven because it's here. And it's one thought away. And God wants to give it to you. Because Spirit says, I'm always with you, and all that I have is yours. Let's be. Let's take this message in prayer. I am knowing that there is only one power, one spirit, one being, one essence. And this power, this spirit, this essence is love, is joy, is peace, unlimited. And it has all the power to beat 7 billion human hearts on the planet without efforting. And I am a piece of this essence. And each and every person present here today and watching is a piece of this divine, perfect, whole, empowered, loved. And that is the divine inheritance of each and every person. You can never lose it. No matter what you squandered, no matter what you did or didn't do, that is always there for you. And the presence is always welcoming us back to our good, no matter what. We can begin again with greater love, greater abundance, greater wholeness. And so I just give thanks. I give thanks for remembering the high truth that takes me back to my Father's house, that takes me back to divine consciousness and an embodiment of it. And I give thanks for Foothills Centers for Spiritual Living, keeping the light on so that we may remember the truth that empowers us, that heals us, that lifts us to higher ground. And so I simply now rest in this word. I know it is done. I know it is complete. I let go, I let good, and I let God. And together we say,